For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Shannon de Rehove. Quest Staffing Solutions CEO Kay Vittee joins me to discuss gender inequality in the workplace. Gender inequality remains a concern in the South African business environment, as potential female leaders are sidelined for their male counterparts. Why do you think this is the case?
So if you look at the economic participation of gender in total, so men represent just over 58% of the workforce, women naturally 42%. And I think therein starts where the differential starts to come in. Now, notwithstanding all of that, women still remain the primary caregivers. They have to take care of their kids, they have a pregnancy, they interrupt their careers, and all of that has a consequence and a factor. And also, you're dealing with either conscious or unconscious bias in the workplace. And there's almost a stereotype sort of outlook towards women. So we're dealing with a lot of those social aspects, which does impact why women are not as economically active in the workplace, because we have the social dynamics.
What is the current state of women's empowerment in the workplace, and what needs to be done to improve this?
I do believe, and it's my personal view, it always starts with education. And if we look at the census report, and I remember seeing it a few months ago when it came out, there is definitely a disparity with women in education, and therefore our male counterparts sit with the tertiary education more than 10% more than the women. So education has a fundamental and a critical part to play. Now, when we talk about women empowerment, we talk about economic activity, economic participation, and if we were to, in our country, with the dichotomy between your urban and your rural, that has other playing factors. If I remember seeing the stat, 42% of our women still remain, they run single-headed homes where they take care of the kids. All of that does lend itself to economic disparity. Now we've got to get our social constructs right, educate our girl children so that they start to take vocations that make them more accessible into active economic participation.
What sort of vocations would those be?
So typically they were male-oriented jobs. You look at engineering, you look at architecture, you look at your culinary arts. One would have thought maybe, so women, I'm finding, and I'm certainly finding that when you go into universities, more girls are taking vocations that are lending themselves where predominantly it used to be a boys' place. Girls are starting to shift that. They're finding, even if you look at sport, girls are starting to play soccer, we're starting to play cricket. It's starting to move in that direction. Are we there yet? Not quite. But I think we have a way to go. I think we have started it. And as that starts to unfold, I think the parity issues will start to sort of narrow the gap.
You firmly believe that the advancement of women is crucial to business success. What, in your opinion, are the benefits to both the company and the country in general in having female leadership in business?
Okay, I'm going to be a little bit prejudiced here. I'm a female, and I compare my approach to some of my male colleagues. And I think the difference is we tend to be more participative in terms of the workforce. We are more compassionate. There is an understanding. But I want to almost clarify that sometimes there is a view that maybe women are there's a tendency of being too soft, that maybe we don't focus too much on performance. And I want to argue that point, because we absolutely do. And where women they have run successful business, there is performance sustainability, there is absolute economic activity. But I think the ability is to collaborate your workforce, to make sure that we understand that it's people foremost before it's results, and there will always be results. And I find women are more practical. We have a tendency of being more practical. We understand that there's shifts, we understand demands of people in the whole, both gender, not just women. And with that, we come with a more empathetic process and approach into the workplace.
And as you said, a woman, when they come for an interview, wants to be at least 80% ready. So that means we're perfectionists as well.
A lot of that. So we bring that center of excellence. I'm not saying men don't, but there's personal pride, and you can see it play out in the workplace. And you go and just have a look at companies where it's headed by women. You definitely see a different culture, as you would with our male counterparts. But our guys are good, they're strong, they're very definitive, I must admit. They drive the agenda. They don't get into the connect stuff and working with maybe, you won't get huge conversations going without getting to task. So they focus on task. A woman has a tendency of focusing on connection and then the task. We don't ignore the task. So we try and balance the two. Is there right and wrong? I don't think so. I think both is needed in every workplace.
Do you think sometimes women are more ruled by emotion and that can play sort of a negative role?
I think it's also a stereotype view where people think, women tend to be more emotive. I don't think it's emotional as I think it is in touch and in tune. I do believe most women have a high EQ and an IQ. So I think many women come with that strength. But our default position is that when you are a nurturer, your tendency is to first try and connect, to care, and obviously you will go and elevate that to a rational perspective. So I don't believe that the response is entirely emotional. But having said that, I've also experienced women, there would be quite a bit of a reaction rather than a calculated response. But you can't generalize. I think it just depends on where people, both men and women, where their EQ stands.
And also that can be something that can be taught.
Always. I think, as you grow and as you mature and as you gain experience, your approach starts to sort of, you taper your approach. You work it according to your circumstances, according to the situation. And with that comes with growth. I think that's why there's an evolution in our life. And as we reach an older path, we become more sensitized and we become more mature. And I think that's the critical element.
You were recently named the 2014 Top Empowered Female Leader of the Year. Can you provide a short background on your own professional journey to success?
So I think very quickly is both my parents were working class, so no management. My mom she never completed her primary school, but in the apartheid era, she was one of the first women to be given a manager position. And what I seen growing up as a role model, that in spite of her deficiency or her weakness from being literate, she had an ambition and a vision, and she knew where she wanted to go. And I think that carved my way of thinking, is that you will always be confronted with obstacles and hurdles. You can live there, or you can be undeterred, and you can conquer those. And doing that by virtue of contributing. So I pride myself in every position that I had. I took the position, but I knew I needed to add value to the organization, uplift the organization, and in that process, uplifted myself. So I started off as a secretary. I always knew I wanted to do more. And while I was the secretary, I studied to be the best secretary I could be. I did a course. I made sure that I knew organizational skills. I then progressed in the organization. I was with a bank, and I knew I wanted to be a banker. So I studied banking. And while I was a banker, I was the best banker I could be at that point. And every position that I took, I completed an MBA while having a child and rearing a family and balancing my work. But the one critical thing is I designed it to make sure I had a support structure. It was a big thing, being an Indian woman. My husband had to make a choice between the two of us who would advance their career. My husband chose to stay at home and become an entrepreneur. And I attribute that to the success that I've had because the support has been there. I have two boys. My oldest son is a master's in chemical engineering. My younger one is starting to become a CA. And what I see with the two of them is that they are well balanced. They also understand it's not only about the academics. It's about the character, about the people that we've become. And one fundamental issue is humility, is that understanding that you exist because there's others around you, that it's not self-interest, and you work to make sure you add value and you become an absolute contributor in all that you do. And the underpin of that is that you have to be an active citizen. We have a social responsibility, so I'm actively involved in Partners for Possibility, mentoring principles. I'm part of Make a Difference, where we mentor young girls to make sure that they see the opportunity in carving a future. So one needs to understand that we coexist in a community and a society. And that pretty much, I do believe, is underpinned my element of success.
What tips would you offer to women generally and the youth specifically to succeed in business in South Africa? Are you an advocate of the lean-in philosophy for women in business?
I want to say to women and youth, if you believe you can, and if you believe you cannot, both ways you'll be right. So it's very important that you believe in yourself. There must be a degree of passion. Whatever you do, do it with excellence. There is just too much mediocrity in the world. We've become accustomed to second guess. We've been accustomed to not pride ourselves. And I do believe that as women and as future leaders, that is a position you can carve out for yourself. Vocation, there must be no gap. If anything you want to dream and you believe you can do it. Don't wait till you're 100% ready, because you'll never be 100% ready. Cut yourself slack. Make sure that you seize the opportunity. As you rise, do not trim those behind you and below you. Very important, lift as you rise. And in that way, you will know that success is earned and not just given, and then that becomes a vacuum. So the idea is that anything is possible, nothing is impossible. But also know that we remain the primary caregivers, that you've got to design your life, that if you chase just a career, and I've seen a few of my colleagues who have done that, come to a point where you feel a vacuum and you feel an emptiness. Life is about balance. I also believe I'm spiritually rich in the sense that God ordained us as women. We are mothers, we are partners, we are wives, we are spouse, and we can have that. We can. It's just how we create a support structure and how we design a career and a life where there's absolute support that surrounds us.
Now, finally, are you an advocate of the lean-in philosophy for women in business?
Absolutely. I often say, and I'll give you my personal example, I sit as one female with the mix, amidst all my colleagues are male, they're male. And for most of the part, for about 2 or 3 months, I sat at the boardroom table just listening. And it became comfortable, because I thought, you know what, I didn't have to air my voice. Let me just listen. And at one point, I thought, no, I'm adding no value to myself or to the business by being quiet and leaning back. And that day, when I leaned forward, I said something, and it wasn't of substance. I just wanted to have a voice. And it was a fundamental lesson I learned in that particular time, because then you negate your position. And the one thing I want to say to women, when you lean in to have a voice, be very prepared, in a sense that prepare your content, prepare your subject, know what questions to ask, when to ask it. Don't talk for the sake of talking. Don't undermine your value. And today I've created an absolute presence. I've become a value-adding partner. My colleagues and I, we debate issues, and I'm able to hold my own. But I know that it does take a lot more work from my part. I have to prepare. I have to know my content. I can't fib. I need to know my financial numbers, always. So that's the thing where women sort of come unstuck. We think numbers are a thing for the boys. We need to know our numbers. And then you lean in, and you lean in with authority.
That was Quest Staffing Solutions CEO Kay Vittee speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about gender inequality in the workplace.